And it's my understanding that white privilege is not telling individuals that they cannot speak, but it is a term for societal privilege that individuals have as a benefit of their white skin. And I don't think that, and I think universities would be remiss to then say that because you're white, you're not allowed to say anything that's critical of white people. I didn't know that white privilege actually went into that sphere. My understanding is it's just, and the issue is that white privilege makes people uncomfortable to talk about the societal privilege that they have.
Well, to me, what I say on campuses all the time is if you want to cite instances of racism that we can all find and fight together, that's something that I am more than willing to stand next to you and fight, because that's obviously stuff that we should fight together. But when you just say that there is a white privilege out there in the ether and that by dint of birth your skin color generates for you an advantage, what you're really saying to people is
Welcome to America Viewpoint, where we speak the truth, defend our freedoms, and fight for the values that made this nation great. No censorship, no woke spin, just bold, unfiltered commentary from real Americans who love this country. If you're tired of the lies and ready to stand for faith, family, and freedom, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the Liberty Bell, because this is where the fight begins. Now, Patriots, today we're breaking down a powerful and revealing exchange between Ben Shapiro and a Congresswoman who tried, and failed, to paint him into a corner on the issue of white privilege. It's a moment that exposes so much about our modern political climate, how the left frames these conversations, and why we must stay firm in defending free speech, rational debate, and the founding principles of America. This wasn't just a polite disagreement over definitions. This was a clash of two fundamentally different views of America. One that sees our nation as permanently divided by race, and another that says our worth is determined by our character, our ideas, and our actions, not the color of our skin. Let's break it down step by step.
Mr. Shapiro, you talked about white privilege, and just this week, I had a conversation with Rachel Lazar, who's done some work, a Jewish American woman who's done some work on this area, as well as having extensive conversations with Dr. Greg Parks of Wake Forest University, who's also talked quite a bit about critical race theory. And it's my understanding that white privilege is not telling individuals that they cannot speak, but it is a term for societal privilege that individuals have as a benefit of their white skin. And I don't think that, and I think universities would be remiss to then say that because you're white, you're not allowed to say anything that's critical of white people. I didn't know that white privilege actually went into that sphere. My understanding is it's just, and the issue is that white privilege makes people uncomfortable to talk about the societal privilege that they have.
Well, to me, what I say on campuses all the time is if you want to cite instances of racism that we can all find and fight together, that's something that I am more than willing to stand next to you and fight, because that's obviously stuff that we should fight together. But when you just say that there is a white privilege out there in the ether and that by dint of birth your skin color generates for you an advantage, what you're really saying to people is that your view is less valuable because you have not experienced what I've experienced. And that is an identity argument, that's a character argument, that's not a rational political argument that can actually be taken on in any way. It's more of a cudgel and a club than it is an attempt to open a discussion.
Well, I think it's a demonstrable evidence that through society's demographics that being white has societal privileges that being black does not. But
we can talk about how that manifests, because that's
I'm also interested in what you just said now, is that you would stand next to anyone who has this. So, Mr. Shapiro, my question to you is, for Ms. Dunston, the tying the noose around the campus and writing messages that target African-American young students, would you consider that hate speech, and then would you stand next to her and fight for her?
As I say, I would. This is the first I'm hearing about it, honestly. But
really,
yeah. But from hearing about it, maybe because it's local. I mean, I'm from LA. But in any case, I'm more than happy to stand alongside her and fight whatever group was responsible for this. Not only more than happy. I mean, you're talking about the alt-right. Again, I was the #1 target of anti-Semitic harassment from the alt-right last year.
Thank you.
I'm more than happy to do all that. And I think there's one more distinction that has to be made. When we talk about cases like Taylor's, they're horrific, and the administration is siding with Taylor. Okay, the administration is doing the right thing by Taylor, or trying to do the right thing by Taylor, as they should be. And I think that we need to make a distinction between cases where the administration is actively participating in the suppression of speech and cases in which the administration is trying to do the right thing in order to punish people for application of crime.
The exchange starts with the Congresswoman citing her conversations with academics, people like Rachel Lazar and Dr. Greg Parks, both of whom work heavily in the area of critical race theory. She offers a definition of white privilege as societal advantages supposedly attached to having white skin. Now, she's careful here. She tries to frame it as something that doesn't silence anyone, doesn't tell white people they can't speak. But notice the subtle framing. She's still asserting that these privileges exist as an undeniable reality, a fact that's just baked into the cake of American life. Here's the problem, folks. Definitions like these may sound harmless on the surface, but they carry an implied conclusion that no matter your personal story, your individual struggles, or your hard work, your skin color determines where you stand in society's hierarchy. That's not the America I know. That's not the America we were built to be. Ben Shapiro responds with a principle that every freedom-loving American should rally behind. If you can point to a specific act of racism, we can all fight that together. That's the heart of unity. You and I, regardless of race, should be able to stand shoulder to shoulder against actual discrimination. That's the American way. But when the conversation shifts from real, provable acts to vague accusations about some invisible system of privilege floating in the air, we're no longer talking about justice. We're talking about ideology. And Shapiro calls it out. This concept of white privilege often becomes a way to devalue someone's opinion simply because they haven't experienced what another person has. That's not debate. That's disqualification. That's replacing the marketplace of ideas with a hierarchy of identities. This is where I need to step in as a patriot and say it plainly. The Constitution doesn't recognize tiers of citizenship. The Bill of Rights doesn't give you a weaker First Amendment because of your race. Yet this ideology, wrapped up in the phrase white privilege, subtly undermines that truth. Think about it. If your worth in a debate is based on skin color, then truth becomes secondary. Evidence becomes secondary. That's a dangerous road, because once you accept that logic, the same tactic can be used to silence anyone. Today it's white Americans. Tomorrow it could be another group. The Congresswoman isn't ready to let go. She insists there's demonstrable evidence that society gives white people advantages not given to black Americans. And then, in what seems like an attempt to corner Shapiro, she pivots to a specific example. Something about a local campus incident involving missed dump stone and hateful, targeted messages, including a noose. Here's the political move. Link the theory of white privilege directly to an emotional, offensive act, so that if you reject the theory, it looks like you're downplaying the hate. It's a tactic meant to make disagreement look like insensitivity. Shapiro makes it clear. This is the first he's heard about that particular incident. But without hesitation, he says he's more than happy to stand with the victim and fight against those responsible. And he means it. He even points out his own history of being relentlessly targeted by the alt-right. This is important. Standing against hate and rejecting white privilege ideology are not contradictions. You can reject identity politics and oppose real, ugly racism at the same time. Shapiro then makes a point that's crucial for every American to understand. The difference between an administration actively suppressing speech, an administration supporting a victim of harassment. In the case the Congresswoman brings up, the administration is siding with the victim. They're doing the right thing. That's not suppression. That's justice in action. But the left often blurs these lines. They'll use cases like this to argue for more speech codes, more restrictions, more censorship. And that's where we, as patriots, must stand our ground. Let's step back for a moment. Our founders didn't craft the First Amendment so that popular opinions could be expressed without fear. They wrote it so unpopular opinions, controversial ones, could still be heard. When you let ideas be shut down simply because they make someone uncomfortable, you're giving away the very power that keeps tyranny at bay. And when concepts like white privilege become untouchable dogma, it creates a chilling effect on honest discussion. Where's the accountability in that? Where's the pursuit of truth? This exchange between Shapiro and the Congresswoman is a microcosm of the broader cultural battle in America right now. On one side, you have those who believe the future of our nation depends on dividing us into groups, constantly weighing grievances, constantly keeping a tally of privileges and oppressions. On the other side, you have those of us who believe in the timeless American ideal that all men are created equal, and that our shared identity as Americans matters more than any label the political class tries to slap on us. Which side do you think will preserve liberty for the next generation? Let's not ignore the hypocrisy here. Many of the same voices who push the concept of white privilege also believe they can speak for everyone on the subject of race, regardless of their own background. But the moment someone like Shapiro, who happens to be Jewish and has faced targeted hate, speaks against their narrative, they say he doesn't get it. So which is it? Do personal experiences matter, or do they only matter when they support the approved talking points? That double standard is exactly why Americans are losing trust in political leaders and academic elites. Here's the takeaway for every listener. Don't be afraid to challenge these ideas. Don't be intimidated by labels. And don't let anyone tell you your voice is worth less because of the way you were born. America is strongest when we unite around principles, freedom, equality under the law, personal responsibility, not when we divide ourselves into endless categories of privilege and oppression. Ben Shapiro stood his ground in that hearing, and we need to do the same in our communities, in our workplaces, and yes, online. This is America Viewpoint, where we don't whisper, we roar. We stand tall, speak loud, and never back down from defending truth and liberty. If this message fired you up, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications because the fight for America doesn't end when the video does. Until next time, stay strong, stay free, and may God bless the United States of America.